It's Box to Box yearly awards right now, folks. Francis Maxwell alongside me, Kevin Egan. And checked out the previous clips on demand. Excellent picks there from Francis Maxwell. We've gone back and forth on a few, but now it's time to pick, Francis, the biggest disappointment of 2016. What's that for you?
Well, Kev, you know how much this is going to pain me because of my allegiance to, Scotland. So I'm happy to say this, that I will go with England as the worst and the biggest disappointment of 2016. Let's look at what the calamity of errors has pieced together to form one of the worst calendar years to date for a country that produces some of the best footballers, but they still cannot compete with the higher level. The Euro 2016, Kev, they were shambolic at times. They came up against a team in Iceland who had all of the fundamentals that they couldn't buy with their team that was worth and paid more than most other teams combined in the Euros. And they were embarrassed as they were sent out of the competition way earlier than many would have expected. Roy Hodgson in charge couldn't get things working together. So then what do they do, Kev? I'll cut a long story short. They get in Sam Allardyce to manage the team, to basically return them to a nitty-gritty style of football to make them hard to beat. And he gets caught up in a ridiculous amount of scandals, more than Wayne Rooney heading out on a Saturday night. And that just sums up England's year. Now they have Gareth Southgate, things are, it's all going to be nice again. No, their year will go down as one of the worst for me. And I don't even care who picks a different suggestion, Kev, because as a Scotsman throws an English team under the bus, there's no way you're going to talk him around it.
Yeah, and I'm surprised the Scotsman is calling England's failures disappointing. I thought you'd be celebrating something like that. All right, look, I'm going to pick the US men's national team because 2016 was a shambles. There were some bright sparks to this. One, obviously, was the Copa America Centenario being hosted here on US soil, which was a wonderful success, I think. And the US had one or two reasonably good performances within that, although they were hammered by Argentina. They looked really poor in a couple of other games as well. But either side of that tournament, what did we see? We saw pre-tournament, we saw the US lose to Guatemala away from home in the Hex. Horrible 2-0 loss. Carlos Ruiz scoring a brace and looking like he's 21 again. Then you go into the tournament. After that, you have weaker performances, the older guards still being called up, the likes of Kyle Beckham and Jermaine Jones still in the team, not bringing through the younger talent. And then Jurgen gets sacked after two horrendous results so far in the Hex. And it's an embarrassing situation for the US right now. Bruce Arena has taken over the job. They're bringing back one of the old boys, which I think is a good decision to try and steady the ship. But looking at the losses to Mexico and Costa Rica, really embarrassing and a terrible year for the US men's national team.
And my instinct tells me it's a little harsh, but the one thing I do have to remind myself is this is a team that were just a mere sitter away from going into the quarterfinals of the World Cup. So they were on the brink of potentially cracking that top 16, top 10 teams in the world, Kev, but they just threw it down the toilet because they didn't have a manager who, in my opinion, despite the fact that I don't agree he's solely the reason why they're in this situation, but he consistently went back to the old guard. And far too often, the United States was settling with these players who they felt were going to lead them to glory. And they underachieved in several different situations against opponents that were far inferior to them. Very similar to what I mentioned there with England. So as much as I think my pick still gets the worst and deserves more so of the recognition, I think, as the worst team in 2016, Kev, I can't disagree that the United States are a poor choice. But I'm sure our audience will have a couple of other suggestions out there. We both went with the national stage, which is interesting. There's plenty of teams out there that have had catastrophic years in 2016. Do I mention Aston Villa, Kev? I thought they were going to get a shout out from you.
Lights, will you? Stop the lights. Come on. Manchester United for the... I'm not picking on you.
I know, but there's a difference between relegation and just having a shambolic year. But I don't want to rub any more salt in the wounds. Audience, what do you guys think? Let us know. Who was the worst of 2016 in your opinion? And come back here on Box to Box for plenty more.